What is going on, guys? Robert from Robert's here with a new video for you guys. Going ahead and wrapping up the Devil May Cry fan hate retrospective series with part 5. So this is the last part. I'm gonna do like a brief recap of what happened on the last fan hate retrospective series. So pretty much in 2012, we are presented everything that the Devil May Cry reboot was going to be about. And at this point, Capcom has showed a lot of arrogance towards the fans pretty much since the initial trailer for DmC Devil May Cry. Ninja Theory has shown arrogance towards the fans when it came to DmC Devil May Cry. And contrary to popular belief, it wasn't just about the hair. There was a lot of grievances that fans had, but Capcom, Ninja Theory, and gaming journalists pretty much all said all the fans were just mad that Dante's hair wasn't white, and they continued to disrespect pretty much the fan base. So the original fans of Devil May Cry told Capcom and Ninja Theory what they could do with the reboot that nobody asked for. Keep it, because we're not buying it. Here is a timeline of the events that happened in 2012, as well as the camps from 2012. So let's go ahead and get this going and talk about the post-launch aftermath of DmC Devil May Cry. So remember when Capcom and Ninja Theory were just trying to make it seem like the Devil May Cry fans were upset about Dante's hair for like the last couple of years? Well, the game reviewers start doing it too. We have a review here, and you can see that it's on January 14th, 2013, the day before the game released, and they gave it a good rating. They gave it an 8 out of 10, and you know, they just can't give it a good rating. They had to throw shade at the fans, as here with the little Shaq and Seal picture. So we have another review, and once again, it's the 14th, 2013, day before the game comes out. They give it a high score, a 9, and what do you know? They brought up the hair again, as if like that was fans' main grievance with the game. So that's like the second time they brought up the hair in a review that really wasn't necessary. But if you look at the review scores that this game was getting, you get like an 8 out of 10 here. Polygon gave it a pretty high score too, but I mean, what credibility does Polygon have? IGN gave it an 8.9. And this is just one of the things about video game journalism. Review scores really don't matter that much. I know that like saying that is kind of weird, but I mean, to be honest, as gamers, we always want our games to get high scores, but in all honesty, people just aren't going to like them. Like, I love Monster Hunter, and I'd say like 12 out of 10, but for someone else who doesn't like it, they just don't like it, and that's just the way it is. However, I will not be so deluded to believe that video game scores don't influence sales, because the review scores do actually influence sales. And I'm gonna do a little scenario here for you guys. So pretty much, let's say that I give you an allowance of 60 bucks, 65, so you can go buy a game, right? And you're about to drop your money on one of these two games here, and you see one game has a 3 and one game has a 7.5. What game would you buy? Let me know in the comment section below. And it's kind of funny because I bet a lot of you say that 7.5, which is ironically Party Babies. So I'm going to be expecting you guys to go pick up Party Babies because it has a higher score than God Hand. But joking aside, you know, the next day, January 15, 2013, DmC Devil May Cry released. The people who didn't pre-order had to pay for Virgil DLC, and you know, that was it. The game's out. People could buy it if they wanted to. People could pass if they wanted to. So yeah, you know, Taneem, like when this all started, he put himself in the trailer, and in the final product, he put his Twitter in there. At the end of the game, like he put his little "Where's the Army" thing. So he made his way into the game, even though he couldn't be modeled after the main protagonist. And yeah. Yep. Kind of moved on with life after that. If you're wondering what was happening, the whole Xbox One thing was going on when Microsoft revealed it, and it had like the mandatory online check, and then like you couldn't play used games on it, and then like you had the Force Connect on there, and people were getting like really heated about that. I remember Angry Joe, like he got roasted on World Star Hip Hop because of his rant, and then ironically he did a complete 180 when they took out like the mandatory check, and people still ended up buying the Xbox One. I'm shocked by that. But then again, gamers' memories, you know, they forget this stuff pretty quick. All right, so I decided to go to the Devil May Cry forums, and I tried to quote unquote reunite the community because I actually care about the Devil May Cry franchise. I was just curious about what other people felt at the time, and I have some screenshots from here, and that one screenshot that I pointed out because I'm not intellectually dishonest, from a guy that pointed something out to me. Here it is. This is when it came about, after the fact. But in all honesty, the Devil May Cry community was pretty much split. It's like, it was pretty obvious to see this game did a lot of damage. And overall, it just made the Devil May Cry fan base look very, very immature. Because if you went to YouTube at that time and it was a DmC Devil May Cry video, so much was going on there. Like, yeah, flaming, trolling, people doing like, I remember I was watching Event Status, and this guy made him not a partner by like doing something. It was a lot of drama. Even like on Thanksgiving, they would go be talking about the game. And all of this just made the Devil May Cry fan base specifically look bad, but made gamers as a whole look bad, and that was kind of sad. And while I was there, like, I have the link for the post there. I joined that day, and I made that long post. There were members that like agreed with me there about what I was saying. I wasn't there saying ha 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 your game sucks or anything like that. I was like, y'all need to like not believe all the high rated reviews, and if this game has problems, y'all need to like point it out. Otherwise, the quality of this product is not going to be good. That's what I want to do. Some people agree with some of the stuff that I was saying. There was others that disagree with me, like this one guy. And like after the fact, I looked at his profile and seen that he was from the UK. And I know that later in this video, you'll see that they did like a heavy push in the UK with advertisement. So I'm like, okay, now I see why he's kind of gets me after the fact. But I mean, it was clear that this game had segmented the community. Like, people that had been at the forums for a long time, they noticed that people were leaving because of this game and the controversy or whatever. It's just, yeah, the fan base was definitely hit. And in all honesty, it's all Capcom and Ninja Theory's fault, because they had every opportunity to stop this before it began. However, they used this controversy to sell their game. Pretty much all of the fan fighting was just free publicity for Capcom's new title, just to keep the buzz going about this game. And in all honesty, the original Devil May Cry fans just didn't want to see Devil May Cry be replaced with DmC. However, many has stated that they had no issue with DmC as a game if it wasn't attempting to replace the original Devil May Cry series. And, you know, despite having the power to satisfy both sides, back in 2011 when they announced the Parallel World, easily could have been a new IP announcement, like I said. And not only that, they decided to jab at the old fans if they did decide to buy DmC with the wig joke.
Not in a million years.
For 2 years, Capcom had ignored their fans, and they were expecting to reach that sales goal. And Capcom really needed to be hit where it hurt in order to learn the lesson. They really needed to hold that L. and it was up to fans to vote with their wallets whether they was going to support Capcom and Ninja Theory's arrogance. So what would happen? Well, DMC did really good in the UK, but they had a really aggressive marketing campaign there from a comment you'll see a little bit later. Despite the arrogance, despite the echo chamber with the gaming journalists hyping this game up, giving it the high review scores, I know Capcom and Ninja Theory had to be like this because reality was setting in. And that reality was that fans were voting with their wallets. Just not for DmC Devil May Cry. The fans, and most importantly, the sales has spoken. DmC Devil May Cry didn't really sell all that well. In fact, it performed worse than all the previous titles. And here I have the article, so you can read it in case they took it down, but I think they still got it up, maybe. And needless to say, because DmC Devil May Cry wasn't selling all that well, the people that were for the game, they began to get salty. And I didn't go in the forums and look at the salt that happened. I went to get the images for this video. But yeah, they weren't too happy about what happened with DmC Devil May Cry. And it's sad because Capcom had to lower sales expectations for this game again. It was at 2 million units that they were expecting to sell, but they lowered it again to 1.2 million. And of course, when this came out, they also blamed the fans again because we just hated the hair. Obviously, all the original Devil May Cry fans just hated Dante's white hair, and they didn't care about how Ninja Theory and Capcom were treating their customers. So, just a little recap, when this all began, their initial sales goal was 5 million units sold. And then in 2012, they dropped their expectations to 2 million. And now that the game is out, they dropped their expectations again to 1.2 million. So, yeah, it's kind of obvious what was happening here. And who's to blame for these low sales? Clearly the fans. And there was articles coming out blaming the fans for Devil May Cry's low sales, which is really unfortunate. Well, I mean, just unfortunate that they didn't do their research before, making these claims. Kind of like how this person said that the IP needed an injection of new ideas and modernization. And that's what they claimed, that's what Ninja Theory achieved. But, I disagree. When you're talking about new ideas, Devil May Cry 4 introduced a new character with his own story, his own supporting characters, and a new city, hunting the old main character from Devil May Cry, and fighting him with a unique ability with the Devil Arm, or Devil Bringer, which allowed him to grab enemies big and small, something not seen in Devil May Cry before. And he had an unknown connection to Dante's brother, wasn't really explored that much in that game, but I think in the novels, it was canon that was Dante's nephew. Not to mention that they had new weapons for Dante with the new Devil Arm, Lucifer, which is a melee and projectile at the same time, and it's unlike anything that had been seen in the series. because like it's literally a melee that you stab into people and then you can make it explode. So it's like both. It's crazy. Not to mention Pandora, which has a lot of options for players to use it for, which is absolutely absurd with how many things you can do this Pandora weapon, because it does a lot. Like seriously, very versatile weapon. It's just really good. Not to mention that they took Devil May Cry 3 style system, where before you had to pick it before the mission, and they made it to where you just had to hit it on the D-pad. So pretty much every style at your fingertips when playing with Dante, including a new style, Dark Slayer, which played like Virgil did in Devil May Cry 3. So when we're talking about desperately needed new ideas, Devil May Cry injected a lot of new ideas in Devil May Cry 4. I think Devil May Cry 4's main problem was that it was clearly an unfinished game because it was rushed. But when they talk about combat, Devil May Cry 4 has the best combat. Hands down. Like, nothing topped Devil May Cry 4's combat. Even Devil May Cry 3, and that's my favorite game. So, what else did this guy say? What, modernization? So, when I first heard him say modernization, I was thinking about kind of how Devil May Cry 2 was in a modern city, with modern clothing and a motorcycle. Not to mention, like, these boss fights where you fight like a tank and a helicopter and this kind of building. I guess he wanted it taken out of the gothic areas and like the little medievalish feeling places and like bring it to a modern city. Not to mention that when I started doing the research for this, after looking at this article, I just remembered that Twosome Time was introduced in Devil May Cry 2, which is like really awesome. So that and Trickster, both of these were introduced in Devil May Cry 2, and Devil May Cry 2 brought the modernization to the series by adding like modern concepts such as an evil CEO. Pretty much all the things that Devil May Cry DmC tried to implement. So it's like Devil May Cry 2 did it and people didn't like that, so y'all like did that again, which is kind of dumb. But I guess by modernization, he might have meant microtransactions where you had parts of the game cut so you can buy it later. Maybe that's what he meant. But the moral of the story is that, Capcom done goofed. They really made a mistake with DmC Devil May Cry. And I can't help but give someone an award for being the saltiest DmC fan. And this goes to A203D. This guy is wow. Like, he was in YouTube comment sections just arguing with people. And I didn't even know that he was in the forums in this thread from 2010. When I started doing the research, I remembered the name. And this guy is a champ because he was for the game way early, like super early. And he kept that passion going from 2010 all the way to 2013 and beyond, because he was still talking in 2015. It's 5 years just about DmC Devil May Cry. Like, wow. Absolutely crazy. So after like DmC Devil May Cry was forgotten about by like everybody, fans are blamed, and pretty much everyone was like making fun of DmC Devil May Cry, because clearly it was our fault that the game fell, because we just couldn't forgive Capcom because they didn't give Dante white hair, obviously. So much so, like, they were literally trying to give the game away. And you think I might be like joking. No, they were literally giving the game away because for a little while DmC Devil May Cry was free for PlayStation Plus members. So people weren't buying the game, but they just wanted people to play the game. So yeah, while bullshitting online, I found this article about 10 awesome alternate costumes in video games, and I decided to click it because, most of the times I don't have nothing to do. I don't really have a life. And I seen that this was on the list. Dante's classic costume and DmC Devil May Cry. And it just so happened when I read like the little caption at the bottom, I was like, yeah, no. Saying that this game defied expectations and turned out to be one of the best entries in the franchise, like that was flat out lie. That's complete rubbish. Because if you go back to the sales, this article is from 2014. So if you look at the sales for 2015, I didn't have the sales for 2014. I'm sorry, guys. But they would have been lower, just so you know. If you look at the top selling games from Capcom, you will see that you'll notice the Resident Evil, Street Fighter, Monster Hunter, you know, Capcom's flagships or whatever. When you get down on the list, you see that number 13 is Devil May Cry 4. Number 22 is Devil May Cry. You see right here that DmC is right above Devil May Cry 2 at the 33rd spot. Then you keep going down, and then you see how Devil May Cry 3 sold, and then you see how Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition sold. So pretty much the breakdowns is that Devil May Cry 4 was the best-selling Devil May Cry game at 3 million units sold. Devil May Cry 3 sold 1.3 million. Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition sold 1 million. And they're both really the same game, except like the Special Edition added Virgil as a playable character. So you combine those and it's 2.3 million sold. And then you have the original Devil May Cry with pretty much 2.2 million sold. And then you have Devil May Cry 2 with 1.7 million sold. And you have DmC Devil May Cry with 1.7 million sold. However, when you look at the 1.7 million, you have to remember that Devil May Cry 2 was originally a Sony exclusive, so it was only on the PlayStation 2. When it comes to DmC Devil May Cry, with its 1.7 million, it was on a PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and also PC. And the HD collection also sold 1 million. And you can tell that although Capcom tried to rebrand Devil May Cry to appeal to the Western audiences with DmC, the sales suggested that fans just wanted the old series to continue because, yeah, back in 2015, they had not reached their sales goal for 2 million units. And this was 2 years after the game came out. And due to the poor DmC sales, fans pretty much expected it to be the end of Devil May Cry because of what happened with Mega Man. And kind of accepted it. You know, we went out on our own terms, I suppose. You know, the franchise died with some integrity. And around 2 years after that, another game was pretty much announced. And I'm going to go ahead and put the trailer in here so you can notice some things about it.
This is Bob Barbas of the Raptor News Network. Just doing God's work.
This is the order. The war is not over. It has only just begun.
I need more power.
So yeah, the definitive edition was coming to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And you could imagine how fans responded to that news coming out. But I mean, at this point, can you blame them? Like, if you looked at this series in its entirety, you can kind of see why fans wouldn't really like Ninja Theory at this point, let alone Capcom. But do you remember all those complaints that fans have been pointing out as early as 2011? Like the lack of a lock-on button? I guess some people didn't like having 2 evade buttons because the definitive edition was going to have a dedicated lock-on button. Remember when Capcom was ducking at 30 frames per second versus 60 frames per second back in 2011? And then you had people defending the 30 frames per second the following year? Well, look, the definitive edition is going to be 60 frames per second. Isn't that something? Do you remember back in 2010 when Ninja Theory was pretty much like the old Dante isn't cool anymore? Well, the definitive edition is going to have a classic Dante skin and a classic Virgil skin. I want that to like really sink into you. Like they were all for old Dante like not being present, and they were talking about how he'd be laughed out of bars back in 2010 and up to the game coming out. Because even the comments from people who like DmC was like, yeah, you know, the old Dante, he looks corny or whatever. And then 2 years later, after DmC bombs in sales, now the old Dante is cool again? Maybe I missed something. Like, I was really dumbfounded by that. Same with Virgil, too. Why would they bring these uncool characters back after all the trash they talked? And oh yeah, you remember how I talked about they had colored enemies and the demo that I played where you had to hit the blue enemy with the blue weapon and the red enemy with the red weapon? Well, guess what? The definitive edition is gonna fix that as well. So, 2 years after DmC Devil May Cry flops, now Capcom wants to listen to the fans, which means that they heard us the first time, but now they actually want to put the effort to do something about it. And along with DmC Definitive Edition coming out, Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition was announced, and here's a trailer for that.
That day forth, my arm changed, and a voice echoed, "Power. Give me more power." The Order of the Sword. The Order of the Sword, huh?
But the real problem is the Order. What if their intentions are foul?
Report back as soon as you can!
Fredo, take care, Kitty. So, you're looking to play, huh? Tough guy, huh? Alright, I guess I got some time to kill.
Nero is a demon.
Kitty, I failed to save you.
Are you sure you want to let him go? It's not my business, but this could get ugly.
Though a fight every now and then does make life a little more interesting, don't you think?
I think I'll have to take you down a couple notches. This skin was made for sending guys like you back to hell! They worship a demon as a god.
I need more power.
I'm pretty sure I was not the only one that was happy to see familiar faces again with the new trailer for Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition. Especially since Virgil was returning as a playable character along with Trish, and for the first time, Lady was playable. So I was already sold on this. But clearly Capcom had other motives. And the reason I say this is that Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition didn't get a physical disc version released outside of Japan. In Japan, there was a physical disc, and they had a collector's edition where they had like a pizza box or whatever. However, outside of Japan, there was no physical disc because it was too quote-unquote complicated. And I call absolute bullshit on that. Because DmC Definitive Edition has a physical version of it available, but the classic Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition didn't get a physical disc release. Isn't that just kind of odd? So here's a little bit about the article. And when you take that into consideration, it makes you wonder if Capcom was kind of trying to spite the fans for not buying DmC. And I kind of felt that way. Now I'm pretty sure other people felt that way too, because Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition was not only going to be a digital only release, but it was coming out the exact same day as Batman Arkham Knight. Yes, the same Batman Arkham Knight that was a system seller. Some people bought their PlayStation 4 just for this game. It was highly anticipated. And Capcom decided to release Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition with no physical disc, digital only, on the exact same day as Batman Arkham Knight. Why they would do this, I really have no idea. Another thing I had no idea about was why they were not following the tradition of having an original Devil May Cry costume in the new game. Because like in Devil May Cry 2, Devil May Cry 3, and DmC Definitive Edition, there's a costume for the classic Dante from Devil May Cry 1. And with Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, everyone gets like these EX costumes, and instead of getting the classic Dante costume, we were given DmC Dante's color scheme on Dante. You know, because that's what all the fans wanted, clearly, was to be reminded of all the stuff that Capcom had did. So when you have two games of the same franchise come out, the recent reboot with DmC Definitive Edition and the original Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition come out in the same year, around the same time, fans are going to think that Capcom's up to something. So a lot of them were speculating that this was Capcom's way of determining which way they was going to go forward with the franchise, picking the winner of who sold the most. And Capcom came out and said that that was not the case. I personally think that was indeed the case, but that's just me. That's my opinion. It's not really worth much. The following year, in 2016, picture came up on the internet and it was removed. So pretty much it was the motion captures for Dante and Virgil in their costumes or whatever, and they posted something up, and then Capcom made them take it down. So people were speculating that this would be a new Devil May Cry game coming out. However, it was not known whether this would be Devil May Cry 5 or DmC 2 or another game altogether. And at this point, we really don't know what it's going to be. However, what I do know is that if there is a new Devil May Cry game release, the quote-unquote fan hate for DmC will be brought up again. And the Devil May Cry fan base will be blamed for quote-unquote not giving DmC a chance again. And I say this because DmC Devil May Cry came out in 2013 in January, and then 3 years after that, the fans were still being blamed for DmC's low sales. And it was this article here saying that DmC deserved better and rebooting the fans' hate. This is what made me make this video series, so I could set the story straight for anyone who's actually interested in learning the truth. So pretty much I've done all the legwork for you so you can know what this controversy was really about. And when you look at this series in its entirety, you'll see that it's not the fault of Devil May Cry fans that they didn't like DmC. Capcom and Ninja Theory were arrogant, greedy, and unprofessional. They talked a lot of noise about the fans. They talked noise about Dante. They said that the fans just hated the hair, and the gaming journalists just ran with it. And you see how it spiraled into what it did when they had the power to stop this back in 2011, when they said that DMC was gonna be a parallel world. Could have been DMC is gonna be a new game, and Devil May Cry fans would have likely given the game a chance, because many have stated that they didn't have a problem with DMC as a game. They just had a problem that DMC was taking over their franchise. And with that said, I got a few updates to do because I procrastinate a lot and I don't get these videos out what I should. So as of 2017, DmC Devil May Cry has not reached 2 million units, although it's almost there. It's at 1.9 million units, so eventually it's gonna hit it. And by eventually I mean like the following year, or probably sometime in 2017 it hit it. And when I checked it in 2018, it finally hit the 2 million units sold with 2.2 million. So this is a huge victory for DmC Devil May Cry. You know, the detractors are saying that the game wouldn't sell well, and you know, after 5 years they finally hit that 2.2 million, which is above that lowered expectations for the sales goal that they had. And it finally beat Devil May Cry 2 for being the worst selling Devil May Cry game. And if you're wondering how the other games stack up to DmC Devil May Cry with the updated numbers, I have it here. Highlighted at the bottom is DmC Devil May Cry with 2.2 million units, and then you have Devil May Cry 4 with 3 million units, and then you have Devil May Cry with 3.2 million units, or pretty much 3.3 million units, and then Devil May Cry 3 with 3.4 million units. And technically, I know it's splitting hairs, but DmC Devil May Cry is still the worst selling Devil May Cry game because of the HD collection. The DmC Devil May Cry, it sold 2.2 million units. However, when you take into consideration that the HD collection has Devil May Cry 2 in the game that sells, you have to add that to Devil May Cry 2's numbers. So technically Devil May Cry 2 is at 2.8 million, and DmC Devil May Cry is at 2.2 million. But you know, that's just me being me. I'm just a fan of the old games, and the old games have been on hiatus since 2013. Pretty much this reboot that Capcom pushed on the fan base who didn't want it, didn't do so well, and as a result, they pretty much took away the Devil May Cry franchise like we assumed would happen, and we haven't heard anything for 5 years, so it's really unknown if they're gonna do anything else with the franchise. Or at least that's what I would have said if the Devil May Cry 5 trailer was not announced at E3 yesterday. So we're gonna see the old characters return. I don't know what's in store for us with Devil May Cry 5. I just hope that they learn from this PR nightmare that happened with DmC Devil May Cry. Hope Capcom does right by their fans and don't screw us over too much. But I know people's expectations are going to be lowered because they're like, well, at least it's not DmC. It is what it is on that. However, with that said, guys, that wraps up this video series. It's been fun. The horse has been thoroughly beaten at this point. I hope you guys have a nice day. If you haven't had a chance to check out the Devil May Cry 5 trailer, by all means, go check it out. And I will see you guys later. Not really, because I haven't seen any of you because this is the internet.